And I was not asking the additional probing questions that were necessary to understand where her true needs were versus my wants for her.
For the liberated souls and the ones in the back, welcome to another class of the Liberated Dreams podcast. Off the Syllabus is the name, and education conversation is the game. Ooh, that was new. I like that. You might have to use that a little bit. I am Dev, co-lead, co-facilitator, if you will, of Off the Syllabus, and we got Cam.
That's
over
Miss
on the
Cam
other
to
side,
the listeners.
you know, and
Thank you. Period.
oh, Miss Cam, my bad. Well, what if we got a listener that's an
how I'm
elder?
known
They still got to
Miss
call you
Cam.
Miss?
Never had any problems with being called that.
All right. You right. Because I did walk these crazy streets of an elementary school, and I was being called, you know, Mr. Anglin and I was like,
Real recognize real.
Okay, so I get it. Real recognize real. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, very positive.
How your week been? Your week been good? Yeah, same. I mean, we did have a conversation for like 2 hours before we hit record, but it's all good. I didn't have a bad week. Only thing is, if you're watching, I am in my childhood home, my mother's dwelling, and I'm in a purple room right now. And you don't see it, but my video is very purple. It has a purple glow to it because my light over there is in the ceiling and it's just messing with me. So if I say something purple, just understand that I'm getting distracted.
Purple is powerful.
All I see is a purple man.
That's the power room.
And purple is royalty. It is the royal color. So, you know, I'm not too pressed. But yeah, my week was good. I am currently in Rochester, doing some of my other work, my contractor work that I do with SLA. We have our last in-person meeting with our partner orgs around the parent partnership work, to close out the year. But that's stuff that we ain't talking about on the pod today. Today, we have a very, very exciting and a very dense conversation or topic. It can be dense, it can be not so dense, but it's about mentorship. And mentorship is something that I hold near and dear to the depths of my soul, to the veins that go in and out of my heart, to the pumping to which pumps the blood through the vessels of my system.
You felt that?
That was poetic.
That came from yo. Literally, that's where it came from.
Yeah, I felt that. Came from my soul. And the reason why is because in the work that I do, we tend to pimp mentorship out as this one size fit all. At-risk youth are the only ones that need mentorship, so on and so forth. And I think the conversation is so much more strategic than that. Mentorship is a growth-based focus to where at every turn in your life, you may need a different mentor to help you through whatever is around that corner. So we're talking about that. Mentorship is not a monolithic focus, is not a monolithic thing. Mentorship can be received from any and everyone, no matter how young, no matter how old. There's wisdom in, I just got a call. It's funny. It was my kid. I'm late paying him.
He said your invoice is over.
It was my kid.
It's time to pay up.
Fun fact. Yeah. And he said customer service is trash right now. Yeah, because I told him the bank was closed last night because I didn't get paid, but I got paid today and the bank is open. So he's been trying to get a hold of the bank all day, but I've been busy. Anyway, and he know I'm in town.
I was going to say,
he said, as soon as you get here,
pull up. He might come knocking on the door next.
It's cool, though, because he told me that he got a D1 football offer.
Okay, Minty.
And a D2 football offer.
All right, we see you.
So.
Good job, young man.
He doing his thing. I got to pay him.
Make sure you get your coin.
He also, and Yeah, he also tried to get me to pay him $500, and I said, "What do you think this is?" Mentorship is the topic today. Mentorship is the foundation of the lesson. Mentorship is something that is often abused in the youth development education space, primarily because at risk youth are often seen as needing mentorship, needing mentors. Not saying that they don't need mentors, but if at-risk youth grew up in a environment that to which has been at risk since their inception, conception, and then their birth, and then they grew up in this space in order to be an adult, and then they become the mentors of the current youth that's growing up under the same conditions as the mentors, then what does that mean? That means that you are getting mentors to which never got mentored to mentor other people who you're saying needs mentors. This is why mentorship is one of those things that I feel needs strategic focus. It's one of those things that need growth-based focus, and it's one of those things that is not a one size fits all. So, with that, that's what we're talking about today. Is mentorship in the multifaceted nature of mentorship as resistance. Um, Mentorship should be resistance. Mentorship is revolutionary if done correctly, and it can break cycles of trauma, cycles of poverty, in half almost immediately going into adulthood. And what I actually we'll get into that in topic one. Cam, do you got anything to add to that intro?
I think that I definitely share the same sentiments as you, Big Surprise. Like when it comes to this approach to just how I think about mentorship, because like you just said a few moments ago, how in our field, oftentimes this topic tends to be abused. And I think that it definitely has become a buzzword, unfortunately. And while it is indeed true that our youth can benefit from getting this extra level of support and guidance, to your point, like you also said a few moments ago, it has to be done very intentionally. And especially when it's Black and Brown youth involved, there's a certain way that you have to go about it. And for me, I was just actually having a conversation with one of my colleagues recently, ironically, about this topic. And what I mentioned to her was that one thing that kind of bothers me a little bit with this work and folks that try to dabble into the mentorship side of it is that when you're not self aware or necessarily willing to put in the extra work of being intentional with being a mentor, you can unintentionally do more damage than good. And so while it is a call in our community that adults do need to answer, that still does not mean that everybody needs to be the one to pick up the receiver. That don't mean
Mhm.
that you need to be the one that is the answer. Because again, if you are not um, willing to learn yourself, and if you are not practicing the same principles or lessons that you are trying to pour into your mentee, then you can be hypocritical. And again, you would just be doing more long term damage than you are doing good. So I'm excited for us to be able to talk about how we've been able to grow in our field through the vehicle of mentorship and how we can give our listeners some tips about how like they can use some of our same practices to their advantage or even just learn from them as well in our comments. Hopefully this will spark some conversation so they can also share how they've been able to support their young people through mentorship.
Yeah, that's a great segue, Ken, into our first segment, effective moments. This is actually the first time we've done this segment, effective moments, and effective moments is actually it's a segment that is a spinoff, if you will, or a product of restorative practice. You practice effective statements, effective language uh, within the restorative practices practice within the restorative practice. That was a double negative within the restorative practices. And it's so funny, everybody, class, because me and Cam is actually working to kind of create our own curriculum for restorative practices to then lead this work in community with parents, with youth, and ultimately with organizations who work with both parties. So be on the lookout for that in a quarter of next year.
Yes, stay
Cam is
tuned.
yeah. Stay tuned. Cam is the writer downer. I am the keep it in my header, and I'm learning from Cam to write it down. So
That's how you help
so
it manifest best. That's how you help it
yeah,
manifest.
yeah. I
See,
know.
seeing is believing.
Seeing is believing, and it's one of those things where it takes me back to undergrad when I was in my English class and the black woman elder, my black English teacher used to yell at me for taking pictures and not writing it down because she said when you write it down, you commit it to memory. And I always just think about when I write it
Commit,
down, I commit it
committed.
to memory.
I
Yeah.
like that.
This week I got on the call and the person I was on the call with was like, I don't really remember. Well, I know it was something that we had to do. I don't remember it. And I went straight to my notebook. It was like, oh, it's right here. I wrote it down. And it took me back to that moment. So shout out to that professor. I don't know what her name is, but I hope, she's still alive and well and all that good stuff. So effective
Yes.
moments. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say appreciate you, Professor. That's all.
Oh yeah, appreciate you. Black woman. I'm in the purple room, so it's all about royalty. Okay, so effective moments. Effective moments is when either myself or Cam, Miss Cam, yeah, I gotta get that right.
Please do.
Tells a story to which we experienced an effective moment or we participated in giving an effective moment, right? And I felt like effective moments fit better in this class versus doing like a hip hop drop or the gym dropper segment that we've been doing over the course of the last classes. So the effective moment is very simple. It's when I was a youth, and I started my journey as a youth development practitioner, a youth development leader. But I was at this time I was probably 15 years old,
Oh.
maybe 15 years old, because it wasn't. We was at it was my second year because we was at Douglas High School for camp that summer, and the CIT program was a counselor and training program that was run out of the community place of Greater Rochester, where all of the youth that partook in the year-round programming had the ability to then work as a intern, basically, in the camp space under the counselors that had been, they've been in the youth development space for a while. This is their summer job, da da da. So one of the rules is CIT can never be alone with the kids because these are kids working with kids. So they do kid things. And in this particular situation, we were alone. Like our counselor took a group of boys to the bathroom. So it was myself and another CIT out with a different group of boys. So we decided to swing the boys by arms and legs and then let them go. Stuff that boys and young kids do. We used to do with our siblings if you got siblings.
Just
right?
reckless.
Yep. So what ended up happening was one of the boys decided to squirm as we were releasing him and he fell on his shoulder. We told him not to tell. Again, kid things. We told him not to tell. He didn't tell. He went home. His shoulder started aching. His mom started asking questions. We working with black kids, so black moms. What's wrong with you? Why are you moving like that? Come back to the next day. She bring it up. We deny it. We lie. We didn't do nothing. We don't know what's going on. Everybody was cool. Obviously, we know how investigations go because we are youth practitioners. So when something happens, now we asking questions, we interviewing people. So we do all that. We going on this business, it probably took a week or so before we got called to tell our stories. And Dr. Leonard Brock was the executive director of like our division at Community Place. And so he was the person that would handle and make the decision. And when we got into those interviews, he was like, yo, I know what happened. So I'm giving you all, well, he interviewed us separately, but I'm giving you a chance to tell the truth. Don't lie to me. Like, tell me the truth. I already know what the truth is. So we told the truth, and he was like, "Yo, don't ever lie to me again. I'm here to like help you, da da da.
Mhm.
But I can't help you if you lie." That's pretty much what the story was. And at that moment, I knew that I would never make that decision again, and that was a turning point. That was a cannon point to which of my youth development journey. And at that moment, because I lied, I could have been fired and blacklisted from ever working with kids again. But
Mhm.
the doc,
And the mama could have been waiting for y'all in the parking lot. Like
yeah,
she
and I
she
would
could have pulled up
assume,
on y'all.
yep, and I would assume that Brock and team did enough coverage, gave us enough coverage to handle it as we do as youth development professionals, while also guiding us through that process and mentoring us through that process, while also getting us to tell the truth. They knew the truth, and as youth development practitioners, we know how easy it is to get the truth. It's
Mhm.
super easy to get the truth in those situations. So he
Mhm.
had the ability to fire both of us and never allow us to work at the camp again. And he chose to go the other route and mentor us and coach us through that process. I'm eternally grateful for that particular moment, because that moment defined what I would then do for the rest of my life and currently doing now. But the impact is that second chance allowed me to reevaluate how I approach the work, but also how I approach the work now as a leader in this space, as a decision leader, as a thought leader in this space. So that was my effective moment, of that's connected to mentorship. As a youth, I was mentored through a decision that I made while also being corrected in that same time. Two things can be true. Um, but that is also the power of mentorship. You're able to engage with young people in a way that affirms their youth, because that was a very youthful decision to make, while also giving them what they need to not make that decision again. And as you can see, that moment has led me to do 10 times more than what I was doing at that time. So that's
Mhm.
my effective moment. Um, that
Mhm.
is that is my effective moment in connection to mentorship.
Period. I feel like that example beautifully ties into what I was saying earlier about how, as a mentor, you have to be still willing to learn and just understand that like you don't know it all, you don't have all the answers. Like even though like you do still have your youth that are still looking to you for that or just leaning on you. And it reminds me of like my effective moment. I was ironically I was double your age, so I was in my early 30s when I had like my aha moment, and it was by way of this was my introduction really into like getting my feet really wet in the youth development field. I had started out just volunteering, just dabbling like here and there, working with young people. But this program was actually a nonprofit mentoring program. It still exists to this day in my community in Rockford, Illinois. The program is called KFACT, and it's an acronym. It stands for Keeping Families and Communities Together. And the purpose of the program is to serve young women, middle school and high school age, with figuring out their post secondary plans and just basically designing their life after high school. And started out volunteering with them. And after about like 6 months of just being locked in with them as they continued to secure more funding, I was offered a part time role as a mentor specialist. And so stepping into the mentor specialist role, I was like basically overnight in full blown caseworker, like social worker mode. So I had a case list of 25 young women. Normally, that was like the average number of my case list. And so there was one young woman in particular that I will never forget. She was, I got paired with her as she was transitioning from eighth grade going into ninth grade, which is already a very pivotal moment for a young person just naturally. But
Mhm.
uh, in the beginning stages of me working for the program, I looking back and reflecting, saw that I was very egotistical. If you would have asked me at the time, I wouldn't have realized it. But I definitely had this mindset of I'm the adult, like you're the child, like I know what's best, like listen to me, like what I said what I said, kind of like a old school approach. And so I remember uh she taught me just basically about how she taught me about like what the real core of holistic mentorship meant. So while I'm taking my new role as a mentor specialist seriously and I'm trying to help her figure out what life after high school is going to look like, I was very laser focused on academics. So I would
Mhm.
look at her grades, I would get on her about like missing assignments, like that type of thing, which was a part of my job, but I didn't really take the necessary time to understand why her grades were slipping, why there was, just like basically a gap in her learning. And so what helped me understand that was she was vulnerable one day and reached out to me. I remember this was like the crack of dawn, it was like morning time. And she hit me up through message and basically was like panicking because I unexpectedly her and her family were getting evicted from their home. And so I knew a little bit about the family dynamic and knew that she lived in a single parent home with her mother. And I believe it was like six siblings total, including her. And she was like one of the oldest. And basically, they were in the process of getting evicted. And she was just like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do. She was just like, is there anything you can do to help me? And so I'm just like, huh? Like, I don't got no rent money. Like I'm trying to take care of myself and my son. I'm in a single parent home. I'm the head of household. And so I'm like, okay, like just keep me posted. Let me know what's going on. And I'll try to like see what resources that I can connect y'all with. So instantly I reach out to the executive director to like let her know what's going on in real time. And then as we're communicating about the issue, by the time of the end of the school day, when the young woman got back home, all their stuff is out on a corner at this point. Like they officially got put out. And I remember it was like a super rainy day. So basically their stuff is ruined because like it's just water just been pouring on it like all day. It was like storming all day long. So now she's just like really like falling apart. Like, oh my goodness, like what are we going to do? So thankfully, the executive director of the organization was very well connected in our community. And so there were donors that we were able to reach out to that were able to give us donations that we were able to piece together to offer some temporary like support for the young woman. So through the donations of the donors, I was able to take her to go get just personal items, like because she didn't have undergarments because again, all the stuff got put out on a curb. I was able to buy her a few outfits that she was able to rotate around. I remember she lost her glasses in the midst of the move, and so I was able to take her to the optometrist and get a new pair of glasses, things of that nature. And so from there, I ended up having to also have some conversations with like her counselor and some of her teachers to explain, not telling her business, but with the permission of her mother, I was able to be that middleman and to communicate to them like, hey, she got a lot going on at the crib right now. So not trying to give her a pass, but school is the last thing on her mind right now because she has to survive. Like she doesn't have a roof over her head. Like she is displaced. She is homeless. And so then from there, I got her and her family connected to the department of our local school district where they support homeless students. So they're able to bus them and just give them additional resources too. So again, that taught me about just how to be more resourceful, how to offer holistic mentorship and not lead always with just the grades and the academics. It's like you have to make sure that needs are being met all around. And yeah, I was just like, okay, like that just changed my approach moving forward. So that way I think I've been able to continue to build um other impactful relationships with young people because I see them as humans. I see the whole being. Like I don't just look at just taking the one-sided approach of making sure that they graduate from school, they get to college because that's not every youth's reality.
Yeah, that ooh, that's a really good example. As soon as you said like I'm focusing more on the destination without understanding like if this car got wheels is a
Mhm.
big piece of like I would say effective um mentorship in any situation, right? You can't just go into this idea of mentorship, which kind of goes back to what I first said. you can't really go into this idea of mentorship uh and just hit the ground and start running. You got to really kind of do like you got to do an assessment of what
Mhm.
is working, what is not working, but then also um really understand to what end am I mentoring, versus just saying like, oh, I'm a mentor, I know everything, this is what you need to do, let's get it done. it's
Mhm.
it's a it's such a, again, more dense um connection to that person in order for you to really be able to serve that person in the way that they need to be served, which mentorship I think connects very closely to like trauma work and
Mhm.
understanding and restorative practices, meeting people where they are
Mhm.
and working with them as they are comfortable to work, versus just doing things because you know it's right. It might be right for you, and that might be how you know to do it,
Right.
but that's not always consistent with what people actually need when we're engaging or uh, when we're talking about mentoring someone to an end, like to a destination,
Mhm.
or just perpetually mentoring people.
Mhm.
And we, as the mentors, we also need to know, like, okay, I've met my limit to which I can mentor you. Let
Yeah.
me pass you, but I know someone who can help you during this season of your life, or whatever the case. So,
Definitely gotta
um,
pass the baton. Be willing to pass the
yeah,
baton. Mhm.
yeah. So, uh, I'm writing something down. But yeah, which I guess that segues into the topic one, which is mentorship has no age limit. Resistance is revolution. And part of the reason why I've kind of produced it that way, because hey, everybody, I produced a show and I actually wrote everything out, because y'all remember last class, Cam was talking about I ain't writing nothing out, so she was kind of lost. So now I did what I was supposed to do, and she still said that it was a lot of stuff to go through. It's just, I can't win for losing.
I don't recall saying that. I just meant that I would like to know the destination that we're trying to get to. That's all. Just give me
Yeah,
checkpoints, give me some clues on where we're going. That's all I said.
yeah.
But
And she got all the
proceed.
clues. Got all the clues. Every
I
clue that she
definitely
needed,
did.
she got it.
Mhm.
Um, But so as I was producing the show, I always like to think of a linear like path, meaning like where are we starting and then how are we getting there. And I think to start this conversation was more so for me tied around like mentorship happens at every age. And you will always need some form of mentorship to get to that next iteration, that next step, that next level, or whatever the case, because somebody has went through something that is similar to what you're going through. You just got to figure out who that person is and how they can support you through what you are going through and what that can potentially look like. And I guess the reason why I also say resistance is revolution is because every revolution started with some form of resistance. So when we are thinking about mentorship, we're engaging with mentorship programs or what have you, understand that this mentorship should be disrupting what is already present, in some way, shape, or form. And you are building out the model of this mentorship with the understanding and the intentionality around disruption. I'm disrupting something. So then I'm going to look for mentors to disrupt something in or around my mentees from a space of grace, space of love. But
Mhm.
also, me as an adult, I might want to disrupt something within myself and in my community or in my surroundings. So I go to seek mentorship.
Mhm.
So adults need the same level of mentorship as youth, as we say youth do.
Mhm.
And the reason why I also lean heavily into that is because adults are only adults because of their age. Just because you go into an adulthood or you become an adult doesn't mean that you have reckoned with in your past and your childhood, what have you. You are trying to engage. So then, as a mentor, you're trying to engage with a system that then doesn't allow for you to engage with the system authentically because you never built the skills. Mentorship needs to be something that is cerebral, especially for my black and brown youth. And I would even say more particularly with girls, because one of the things, even though I am a man, I'm a boy. Used to be a boy, and then I turned to a young boy, and then an older boy, and then a young man, and I'm an older man. I don't know why I cut it down like that, but whatever, right? We have this notion, especially with my black girls, that they can just figure it out. And after reading Push Out, the criminalization of black girls in schools, and then watching the documentary, I have always been a advocate for girls who, or girls, and particularly dismantling this idea that girls will just figure it out because they're always present. Girls deal with a lot of things that mentorship can help them through. And for me, I think that, again, similar to what I just said, just because you turn into adult by way of age and physical build doesn't mean that you are an adult yet. Matter of fact, on Introspective Insight, we do a segment called The Internet Taught Me. I played a clip around um, Cambridge University, I think it is, one of those British universities, said that your youth actually goes into your early 30s, which is a very interesting concept because in Baltimore, they tried to raise the adolescent age. So like you being charged as an adolescent versus an adult to 26 when your frontal lobe develops. I think all of
I can
that
see
plays,
I
yeah,
I
right.
can see the
And I,
justification behind that.
yeah, and I think all of that plays into like this mentor piece, right? If I'm taught one thing as a youth and nobody teaches me the opposite reality of that, I grow up believing this is the only way. So now I grow up engaging in something that is a reality as if it is the reality. And I just think that we have to, for girls in particular, we have to make sure that our focus is as hyper with them as it is with our boys. And the last thing I'll say before I pass it to you, Cam, is that's the same difference as when Michelle Obama said we coddle our boys and we raise our girls when she was on her book tour. I always use that quote because that is so true. And that, just that quote alone takes us down a thought process that we don't often have a conversation about because we feel as such that our girls needs to be raised so they don't turn into a baby mama, and they don't, we push onto them all these other things, and then our boys who's creating the baby mamas. It's crazy how we going back to this conversation when we had this conversation off
Mhm.
off camera, but to which, like, it takes two to tango. So you can't raise girls to not become a baby mama, but you're not raising boys to not become a deadbeat dad. Like that,
Mhm.
that is a double, that is something to which you can't teach one without teaching the other.
Mhm. It's definitely a
So
contradiction.
yeah, so yeah, what you think about that? I think that's the foundation of this mentorship has no age limit conversation, and the resistance is we have to fight against what we've been conditioned to believe in order to really jumpstart the revolution.
Okay, come through with the word. There's two things I want to say to that. So, starting out with the age limit point, I think that what I see oftentimes in this field when it comes to mentorship is that a cutoff that typically happens once youth is at high school level and once they graduate. Typically, I see a lot of programs kind of fall off or not continue the relationship building beyond that. And while I do see also on the flip side in some communities or at universities where you have like the trio programs where that does still support young adults at that next stage of life, there's not enough of that, not enough intentionality with staying connected with them beyond high school. And so I have been in my just journey as a mentor and in youth development. Try to make sure that I break that cycle, and I make sure that once my mentees transition on beyond high school, that we're still checking in with each other. Like just this past summer, my mentees that returned home from college, like I took some of them out to lunch so I could catch up with them and just hear like, all right, like how was this past school year? Like what were some of the challenges, or like what are you involved in now? Or even before that, like just writing letters of recommendation still for them, or just trying to still give them tips beyond high school. I have seen how that has been beneficial with like continuing to guide them and just furthering our relationship, even just with my Rise Teen Summit event that me and my partner hosted. I had my college students
Go ahead.
I had my college students who were again here back home help with participating in the panel discussions and things of that nature. And that's the goal for when we run it back for the second annual event, is to keep them involved because they are still needing that guidance. And you have to think about it, like if they just needed at this stage of life in high school that guidance and they didn't know how to connect to different resources, especially if they were first generation, then as they transition to college, that's not going to change. Like that's a whole new world for them where they're away from home. And most of the time, like they don't have any friends and family around. Or again, if they're first generational, they can't call back and ask mom or dad or auntie them, what did you do when you were struggling in a class, because they're the first of their family to ever embark on that experience and that journey. So mentorship definitely goes beyond just your technical like youth age, and even like beyond college. Like us as adults right now can speak to like in our different chapters of our adulthood where we've been able to grow and access other opportunities because we have folks that were more tenured, more experienced, more knowledgeable than us, that gave us a chance on different things or just taught us different skill sets or how to enhance skill sets that we already had so we can be able to master them. Like it definitely never stops when it comes to age. That's the first point. The second point is I wanted to speak on the adultification of young Black and brown women. That is definitely a serious problem. So not only does our society just assume that our girls are just going to figure it out, but we also make them grow up much quicker than what they should have to in terms of just the level of responsibility they normally have to take on. Referencing back to KFAC, the program I was just talking about in the effective moments, I've seen a lot of that throughout the years of the young women that I supported, where oftentimes, and especially if they were like older sister or big sister, sometimes they weren't able to come to programming or to do the community service projects that I was organizing for the program because they would have to be home watching younger siblings, or they would have to not only watch the younger siblings, but also be responsible for feeding them, clothing them, like getting them, sending them off to school or whatever the case may be. Even in my household, I'm a big sister. I don't fault my mom for this because she was a single mother doing the best that she could, working multiple jobs. But then, unfortunately, with there being an 8-year gap, and again, me being the oldest, I would have to like look out for my little sister, which wasn't necessarily an issue, but by the time I got to high school, we did butt heads in a lot of different instances because Friday night, I'm trying to go kick it with my homegirls. Like I want to go to the basketball, football game, and I'm being told either one, I can't go because my mother has to work and I have to stay home and watch my little sister. Or it got to the point to where I was being told like, okay, you can go, but you got to bring your little sister. And don't no teenager want to have your little bugaboo younger sibling with them that's looking at everything that you're doing, is probably going to come back and snitch and tell your mama if you was talking to a boy or whatever the case may be. I do think that, we can do a better job, like as a community, as a society, with not just assuming that our young women are just naturally able to take on more, and that there aren't like additional guidance that they need, because there's so many pivotal conversations that they miss and lessons in terms of, like how on the things that they're going to be faced with once they do officially become an adult. A lot of times, like, there's just so much that falls and slips through the cracks, and it does them a disservice. And so with me having tons of experience working with young women, I am just very aware, self-aware, with not only just the areas where I'm giving them guidance and I'm mentoring them, but even just how I show up as a woman, because they don't always have that same positive example in their home life. So right now, as I'm just subbing and going through the schools and still working with young people, when I'm having conversations with the young women, it's just so eye-opening, the things that they notice and the things that they pick up on. And I hear so many statements from them like, "Oh, you so pretty. Oh, I love your hair. Oh, I love your nails." Like, they're not being taught about femininity oftentimes in the home. Not saying that that's always the case, but that's one of the key conversations that I've noticed over the years, that our young women are not being taught, or they're just not able to even just have dialogue, just open dialogue with their mothers or other women in the family about what that means. And it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to be like a girly girl like me. I've supported some young women that you may consider to be masculine presenting, but it's still worth having that conversation just so they know the spectrum of that and how they can still tap into that and still be true to themselves and be authentic. So
Mhm.
I can go on for days with this, but I just wanted to make sure that I had touched on, the point to what you mentioned about how they deserve the same amount of intentionality and laser focus as our young men do.
One of the things I was thinking of when you were giving an example and kind of expounding on that is boys and girls need different things when it comes to like mentorship and guidance.
Hmm.
And those
Absolutely.
things overlap, 100%
Hmm.
overlap, but it's the context to which they need that is different. You know what I'm saying? That time in the month is one of those things where it's like that change, that like overnight change, abrupt change, whenever that change happen, change is a very niche conversation that girls should be having with women and what that means.
And And to that point, even the hygiene that's required when it comes to that, like even when you're having the
All of it.
hygiene talks, they both need it, but like you said, it has to be delivered in different ways.
Yeah. And it's not appropriate for a man to have that conversation, even if he like raises all girls, right? And he's had that conversation 3 times over, or he's had to support that conversation times over. Because one of the things in this work that we should always lead with is the very thick line of child safety and not divulging information that can potentially put you at risk. No matter how
Mhm.
much you trust a youth worker or you trust someone, certain conversations should be passed off to others who have the ability and the flexibility within child safety to have those conversations without having to be, a guardian, a legal guardian, or whatever the case. So, and again, that is one of those examples that may be a little bit more on the extreme side, but it's nuance because there is also changes that happens in men that don't show up, young men that don't show up in this as concretely or as overtly as that time in the month, but you tend to start to change your behavior when you start to act grown as a kid. Now you start to exploit young women potentially, or you start to build behavior that lead to the exploitation of young women, and you tend to now start to treat women a certain way based off of how you've seen them be treated, or you've been taught to treat them once you start to be an adult and do adult things. And those are different touch points of mentorship that makes it one have no limit, because there's very grown men 45, 30 plus act as if they're a 16-year-old boy in high school. And we've seen some men, high profile men, go to jail because they still see themselves as a 15, 16-year-old, but you really 50 years old. I digress. We have to get to a place in this idea of mentorship where we are leveraging where we are currently as people, as a person, as a human, and then seeking support at areas to which we feel we need it or we know we need it. Because sometimes, I'm not saying this as an excuse for y'all not to go to therapy, but sometimes a mentor can be like a hood certified therapist. For y'all
Or
that
life
don't know,
coach, like a life
life
coach
coach.
too.
Yes,
Mhm.
life coach. And for y'all, those of y'all that don't know, anytime I say I'm hood certified, that mean I don't have the official schooling,
Credentials.
but I'm there. I'm a hood certified. You know what I'm saying? So that's your life coaches, your mentors can be like hood certified therapists, psychologists, and things of that nature because they can help you through things that they've experienced. But you still should also seek out therapy. The therapist also is a form of mentorship. It happens.
But there's
Mhm.
power in being like a student in the school of hard knock life too,
Oh,
because
100%.
it's basically like that type of cultural responsiveness is also what helps positive outcomes come from mentorship. One of the resources for today spoke about that. I'm trying to see which one specifically because there were so many, but
Oh, all right. I see what you did there.
see what I did there? Yeah, but
Mhm.
no, it speaks about it, and I'm gonna find it here in a moment. But like, I think that is also the key piece to mentoring Black and Brown children, and why that's so impactful is because when they see themselves and the adults that are before them, then it helps have greater long term outcomes. I think it's the Casey Foundation resource that kind of speaks to that point about
Mhm.
the positive effects that mentorship can have when it comes to the life outcome. So I just wanted to piggyback off of
Yes.
what you said and affirm you.
Yeah. The Casey Foundation, which we will get to in topic 2. We're bringing in some statistics to which Miss Cam, has already kind of started us down that Annie E. Casey Foundation and mentorship.org, that organization bringing in some data to support why mentorship is effective. But then we have a cool kind of like spin to it. But before we get into the second topic, Cam,
Hmm.
you have recess this
I
class,
do. I
and
do.
recess is in session. So what you got for us? What type of fun we having today?
So I think that just staying in the spirit of mentorship, what I wanted to do for recess was to highlight on how important conversation is when you're in the process of building relationship. And that's not only just with the young people that you're serving, but even if you're blessed with the opportunity to work on a team and you're working alongside others that are like in the trenches with you, you're not going to be able to understand each other or to be able to like truly know like what the need is without being able to open up that conversation and dig deeper and get beyond the surface. Like I said earlier, I was trying to approach a relationship with a mentee by just being, one track minded and just talking about school. And I was not asking the additional probing questions that were necessary to understand where her true needs were versus my wants for her to be able to look good on paper. So throughout the years, I've been able to tap into one of my superpowers. I like to refer to myself as a master conversationalist. I love a good conversation. I'm going to probe. If Miss Cam don't do nothing else, I'm going to ask some questions because I like to get an
Mhm.
understanding. I like to be clear. That inspired me to kick off one of my most recent projects, which are digital conversation cards. And so with these cards, I wanted to be able to give other youth development professionals, but even some parents, educators, just tools that could assist with having these pivotal conversations with not only just opening up the dialogue between themselves and the young people, but just learning from each other as well and growing. One of the questions, well, there's 3 different levels, first of all, of the cards. And so the goal is for, first level to be like introductory, second level to dive a little bit deeper. But by the time you get to level 3, you about to be doing some soul searching on both ends.
Mm.
And so I thought it would be dope to give the audience a teaser on a level 3 question and just allow both of us the opportunity to do some soul searching for our listeners. So what I wanted to pose to you, Devin, was the question of, and it's level 3, so brace yourself, but I think you
All
can
right.
handle it. I think you
My
can
number.
handle it. This is community time. So tea meaning spilling the tea, but
Ooh.
yeah, like see what I did there. But
Mm.
the question
Very,
is,
very canvas.
it is. I can't help myself. But the question is, when was the last time you felt seen?
Ooh.
Mhm.
Ooh. When was the last time I felt seen?
Yeah, this is literally the nature of the work that we do with affirming our young people and making sure that when they're interacting with us, they're always feeling seen and heard. But do we actually make sure that we're also, receiving that as the people that are pouring into them? So
Seen by okay. Is it just seen in general? Like in general, when was the last time I felt seen or seen by a kid?
I would say seen in general. That's
In
cool. We
general?
can go with
Okay.
that.
We're in the end of the year. So end of the year you tend to start planning for the new year coming in. So we were doing our I'm the systems change coordinator. I'm contracted to be the systems change coordinator in our parent partnership work. And at the end of the year, we were tasked to start to plan for our 2026 goals as the systems change team, while also reflecting on since this was our first year in under this model. I started as a coordinator in January, so we're ending this first year under this motto. And so it was like reflecting on, what worked and what we want to take into 2026 and then what didn't work and we want to leave in 2025. And my entire team had nothing but good things to say about my way of facilitation, my way of leadership, to which it is very easy to follow. It's very
Mhm.
easy. There's never a time where they feel as if I'm confused. They can always ask me a question. If they
Mhm.
challenge something that I'm saying, I don't take it personal. So they thoroughly enjoy the way in which I facilitate the content around systems change, around our parent cafes. So that is something I had to go and be like, yo, so is there anything y'all don't want to take into 2026? Like it's okay. You don't have to tell me affirm. You don't have to
Mhm.
affirm only. You can tell me some negative too. But they was like, nah, like the way in which you've run this makes it easy on us, being that this is like, my evening 6 p.m. work after I've already,
Mhm.
done my 9 to 5 work. So nah,
Keep
just
them
keep it
feeling
moving, keep it going.
motivated.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So I would say that is the time. That happened 2 months ago. So we did that. We did that. No, it happened at the top of the month. Let
You
me look
said
at the
it's the end
calendar.
of the year, so I would think it was more so recent than
Yeah, yeah, it's recent.
not. Mhm.
Yeah, it happened on the 4th. No, not last week. It happened on the 20th.
Okay, so the
So
end of
that week
November,
before the end of November. Yeah, so 2 weeks ago because
before the
we did.
holiday.
Yep. Yep.
Mhm.
One of those times. So
Okay.
it's so crazy, but how time feel like it's so far away, but that just happened like a couple weeks ago. But
It be
yeah, that was the
flying.
last time. That was the last time. And that
Okay.
was in terms of your community, that came from
Mhm.
community. That didn't come from some corporation.
Right. Okay, positive reinforcement. Okay. I can agree with them, even though I don't work with you in that capacity. Just looking back from my time in my past role when we were where I had to yield to you for, guidance with the the project we're
Yeah.
working on together. You definitely ruled with an iron fist. We've told that story in past episodes, but definitely whenever we were on our monthly calls, there was never a moment where I was not clear on what your expectations were on the direction that we were supposed to be going in with the work. And I always felt supported, like whenever I needed help or had a question, and you were always responsive. So I love to hear other people having the same positive experience with you. Shout out to you, Deb. Keep up the good work.
I appreciate I appreciate
Yeah.
it's what I'll say to end that is it's so funny the iron fist comment that
Hmm.
you just so gracefully continue to bring up. But
I mean, I just tell the truth. That's all. That's all I know how to
yeah,
do.
I was in a meeting this morning in connection to that work, and um we're appointing one of the parent leaders as the parent cafe coordinator. So she will help assist in she will be um the main contact to the parent cafes, and then I will focus on the other stuff that I'm supposed to be doing in terms of systems change, but we'll work in tandem together. And
Hmm.
she made the comment around like, Because they was like, yeah, Devin is here, so because he will be the one that will introduce you as the coordinator to the group. Da da da. She looked at me like, yeah, because if they got something to say, you would just shut it down real quick. And I was
Mm.
like, I mean,
Touche.
yeah,
Touche.
because I
Mhm.
know why. Like I know why. I'm the reason why you are being chosen as the the coordinator, and that's not because I said it. It's just because I acknowledge the extra work and extra time you put into making this work, especially when I wasn't present for the cafe. So it's a reason for that. So if anybody has a question, you can question me directly, but it doesn't change that
Mm.
this is going to be the cafe coordinator. But
You
I will
said
listen to
what you
you.
said. You
I will
said
listen
what
to
you
you
said.
and I will affirm you to the ends and the depths of the earth, but the
Mhm.
decision is the decision.
That part.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
like
I
that.
guess
I like that.
So I guess when it comes to my response, the last time when I felt seen was just this past week, and I am actually going to use an example with a youth because literally it was the first thing that popped into my head. Earlier this week, while I was on one of my sub assignments, we may have to make this a segment eventually too down the line of like Miss
The
Cam's
sub
Chronicles or
assignment.
something. Oh, so the sub assignment. I was thinking of Miss Cam's Chronicles, but the moral
Ooh,
of
I
the
like that
story is
too.
I got a story, y'all. I always got a
Hmm.
sub story. Like it's crazy. But so I've stepped into like just different classrooms and different settings. And this particular assignment, I was in an automotive class, which
Ooh.
I'm thinking it was gonna be just like a breeze, like they just gonna be chilling, whatever the case may be. And for the most part, that was the case. But there was a young man that came into I was only working a half a day. So I got there like dead smack in the middle of the day, relieved the teacher. He went on about his business. I guess he had a family emergency. So as I did attendance for this class period, I noticed there was a few students that were not there. They were absent. So I marked them absent. And one of the absent students actually ended up coming. He was a little bit late for whatever reasons. And so he came in, gave me his name, and then he went to his seat and he was just chilling. So I'm
Mhm.
working on my laptop and out of nowhere, the young man that came late, like, looks over at me. He kind of squinted his eyes. He was like, "You look familiar. Where I know you from?" And so I hear this all the time from young people because, again, I've been doing this work in my community for a long time. And for the most part, I know a lot of the youth that, I just see in the classrooms or if I'm walking through the school or if I'm just out and about. Like, I just be knowing these kids, they be knowing me. And so he's squinting his eyes, trying to, put two and two together. And so I didn't recognize him because typically, like, I be knowing these kids. Like, I be remembering names, incidents, parents, like all of that. And he wasn't one that, was fresh in my mind. So I was like, I don't know. And he was just like, he named a community center in our community and was just like, "Did you work there?" And I was like, "No." But then I put two and two together. Oh, he must have been at the other community. He must have been at a participant at the community center that I did work for. I was there for like 3.5 years. I was a supervisor over the after school and summer camp program. We had hundreds of kids come through there like every season. So when I asked him, like, "Oh, did you go to programming at this community center though?" Another one, instantly he was like, "Yep." He's like, "That's where I know you from." And I was like, "Really?" I was like, "Normally I remember everybody. So tell me about yourself. Like, what? Like,
Now tell me about yourself.
because
Tell
I'm
me
like,
about your
I'm
soul.
intrigued. I was like, I'm intrigued. Like, how do you like? Are you sure? Like, because again, I have a very vivid memory when it comes to these type of things. So he ran down like who his group leader was, the other young boys that he used to kick it with, and instantly the other two boys' names. I'm like, oh, I definitely knew them because they were regulars in my office. The kids used to have a little insider. They would call me the principal because they knew like anytime they cut up, staff was gonna bring them straight to Miss Cam's office. I was gonna get them together. So the boys
Mhm.
that he mentioned, I said, okay, I know you're not capping because they definitely was there. And so I was like, all right, your group leader, yep, she used to work there. He was like, yeah, we had got into it one time because she was my neighbor and she was talking crazy to me. And, I was getting smart with her. So you came in. I remember coming to your office. He was in the corner. He was just like, and he was like, I remember you had your locks. He was like, in your glasses, like you had like these like shaped glasses like this. Like he doing his hands. Like he is just basically like recalling the whole like incident, the interaction. So again, I know that he is like telling the truth. And so I was just like, oh wow. I'm like, yeah, okay, like you right, you was there. I said, did you used to come regularly? I said, or was you one of the spicy ones? I said, because the spicy ones, we was locked in real bad. I knew all the spicy kids. I'm like, you must have been a quieter one. And he was just like, yeah, I barely came. He was like, and it was just that one rare time where I did come, I was brought to your office. And so he was just like, how you been? What you been up to? Like, he was just so excited once he connected the dots and he like recognized me and all of that. And he just kept saying like, yeah, because no, I remember things. Like I remember like shoes, glasses, hair. He was just like, yeah, I remember you. And I was just like, okay, like I made obviously a positive impression on this young man because not
Mm-hmm.
only did he remember just my presence, like how I showed up, like physically, but it was a good memory because then he lit up and then he was asking me just what I've been up to. And when I asked him the timeline of all of this, it's been like a 4 or 5 year gap. So he was probably like on the tail end of elementary when we had our last interaction because now he's in high school. He's a junior now. So I was just like, wow, like that's just speaks volumes about, like how kids will remember how you treat them, how you made them feel. And that's why like just in this field, like we just got to be very careful about, how we show up and how we interact with them. So I just felt seen because like my presence like obviously left a lasting impression when he still remembered me like 5 years later. So I thought that was dope.
Yeah. That mean that you was annoying.
Oh yeah, for sure. The kids had the phrase, they'd be like, oh, Miss Cam do too much. And I'd be like, period. I definitely
Mm-hmm.
do.
Yep.
Definitely do. That's
I
what I'm here for.
Yep.
But they
That's
kept
exactly
coming
what I'm
back
here
for more. They loved it.
Yeah. Oh,
Because they didn't get that structure. Like they didn't get that type of attention. Like they didn't know they didn't know I was what they needed.
yeah, they'll never admit. They will
Mhm.
never admit to you that they're saying you're annoying, but they're really saying like
I
I
love you.
appreciate you. Yeah. I
Yeah.
love you. I
Mhm.
appreciate you. This is what I need. They'll never say
Mhm.
it because a great mentor understands that you show up as you are and you let them show up as they are.
Mhm.
Like that is yes. And then that allows for you to be seen because you're not you're not impeding on their ability to exist.
Right.
You're giving them exactly what it is that they believe and think that they need while also guiding them through whatever it is that they truly need.
But you're
Guided
also
participation.
helping them tap into areas of themselves that they never knew existed either and unlocking like superpowers as well because we see them in a different way and in a brighter light than what they're accustomed to. And there's
Mhm.
another example, in our resources that speaks to that, and we'll talk about it. It's in one of the videos with
Go
the
ahead.
young woman.
Segue into it. I was
Okay,
going to do that
period.
same thing. Mhm.
Yeah, so like the video, the YouTube video of why public schools should reinvent mentorship, is a continuation of what we're talking about right now with was her name, Miss Jess or Jess? I think
Yeah.
that's what her
Jessica
team
was
called
her.
her.
Yep.
And so they highlighted, one of her teens, Imani or Mani, who had some truancy issues, who would typically come to school super late. And she says herself, like in the video, that typically she would just give her pass to the teacher and go on by her business. Like nobody ever probed or acknowledged or even asked about, why this was becoming such a recurring thing. But when Miss Jess crossed paths with her, though, she said she's seen her, like repeatedly, like, coming late. And so she just simply asked her one day, like, what's going on? Like, and from there, like that made like such a lasting impression on Imani because she said herself, like, nobody had ever asked her that before. So just literally just being seen and acknowledged, like, man, what's going on? Led to such a beautiful relationship that they were able to share about in that video. And it just speaks to, again, just the importance of letting our teens, our young people feel seen and heard, like, and just acknowledging that they even exist. And
Mhm.
as simple as it may sound, unfortunately, that's a area of growth in our education system. That's another thing that I see a lot from when I'm subbing and the conversations that I'm having with students in different settings. And I go to an alternative school in my community often. That's like one of my most favorite schools to go to. And I've had conversations where the teens are telling me that like there's some classes that they go into where the teachers have never spoken to them. And here we are almost at the end of the first semester. That's a shame.
That's
That's a
insanity.
But
That's
it happens
insanity.
more commonly than what we realize.
When
And so if you're in the crib, if you're at home and you're not having much conversations with the adults that are taking care of you, and you go into school and it's that same level of, dismissiveness, then you're just going to fade away into,
another
the
statistic.
yeah, you just fading away to the back. You just, going through the motions. You just don't have no expectations. Like you're not trying to reach no bar, no nothing. Like you're literally just there.
Yeah, I one of the things that I did when I worked in the school is I made it my business. I don't know why I did, but I made it my business to acknowledge every kid and every adult in that building.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I know why I did it. I don't even know why. I just don't know. The reason why was because my presence was my biggest influence.
Mm-hmm.
If I wasn't present,
Especially being a black male in the school, like
yeah.
for sure.
And I'm in like a pseudo disciplinary role, but I'm not really in a disciplinary role, but that's how I was used. And that's how I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be used. Not in the sense of I wanted to be a disciplinarian, but I was the pastor. So
The
if you don't
problem
want to get
solver too.
disciplined,
Mm-hmm.
you want to listen to me
Mm-hmm.
because I hold the power. The way that I position myself, I hold the power to kind of convince the system not to suspend you.
Yeah, to
So
redirect you.
yeah, I need you to lock in. Now, if you don't want to engage with that, that's cool.
That's on
You got
you.
to go home and tell your parents why you got suspended, whatever the case. But I advise the latter. So which one you want
Right.
to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but part of my strategy, and it worked well, was not necessarily to be seen by the kids, but to be seen by the adults. So from the first day of me being in that school to the very last day of me being in that school, every morning I went to every classroom in that elementary building and I said good morning.
Mm-hmm.
So much so that by the time the teachers were used to me, they would stop class and say, "Oh, Mr. English
They
here.
look at
Everybody say good morning." Right. And then if I wasn't able to get to a classroom because I had to deal with something, the kids would come and find me and say, "Yo, I didn't know you was here because you didn't come to the class and say good morning." I'll be like, "Yo, my bad. I had to deal with such and such, or something happened on the bus." So you know what I'm saying? So I had to do it, but that goes to
you
breaking
had them
down.
spoiled.
Oh yeah, they thought that I was the
They're
principal.
like, we
That was
can't
the
start
crazy
our
part.
we can't start our day without Miss Chamberlain. Nope.
Yeah, yeah. It would throw them off, right? And sometimes I would have to not go into the classroom because like my second graders would get up and come and like hug
Mm-hmm.
me because that's
Mm-hmm.
just the type of energy, that's the type of magnetism that I carry
Mm-hmm.
by design. But I do that so they feel seen and they feel heard.
Mm-hmm.
Even the adults, right? They feel seen, they feel heard, and they feel the energy to start the day. That
Mm-hmm.
those I don't know, but
It's
those
setting the tone though. It's so
yes,
important on how you
yep,
set the intention for the day. So
and maybe when they didn't see me, they tried it, and then when they got that call and they see me coming, oh, I didn't know you was here. Let me get
mm-hmm.
myself together, right? And in some
Mm-hmm.
cases, yeah, I had kindergartners. I'm gonna call Mr.
Ooh.
England. Oh no, 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 no! Don't call him. And it's not because I'm mean, but I'm holding you accountable. Now we ain't doing that. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know
Or
what you
they
thought this
probably
was.
maybe didn't want to disappoint you. Like there's probably so
Yeah,
many factors that went into
yeah.
that.
And I think that is also a form of mentorship where
Mm-hmm.
you have the ability to affect lives without having to be like deemed a mentor. I was just
Mm-hmm.
at a on a work trip this past weekend. And I told these kids that I met for the first time, I'm doing this work because of each and every one of you. I see myself in each and every one of you. And if I didn't see myself in each and every one of you, then I couldn't do this job effectively. I'm here because you're here. If you wasn't here, I wouldn't be here. This is a two-way street. I can't exist in this space if you are not present in programming. So I have to do things to which I'm putting your presence at the forefront at all times. I work for
Mm-hmm.
y'all. I work for y'all. When you come here, you're generating some form of revenue. which then is being used to pay me. So in a sense, y'all are paying me to be here. So I need to be able to see you and see myself in you to do this job at a high level. And that's kind of that is the effects of mentorship, and that is the effects of seeing kids. I was gonna use that same as soon as you said it. That's why I said go ahead and segue into it. I was gonna use that same video because that video is a prime example, especially of girls existing without the system acknowledging their existence. So then when their existence is acknowledged, it sparks greatness right away. Like it sparks something in those kids to where like they are now believing that they can do or partake in something that they never seen as possible before.
One of the other articles, Devin, that you found for our episode complements that well too. That every student needs a mentor. That's one of the themes that I took away from it was basically like it says in so many words like how young people will rise to the level of their relationship. So that was those kindergartners being like, no, 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 like don't call Mr. Anglin, like because that consistency was there, that relationship was built in, and so they are able to kind of course correct themselves, hold themselves accountable, and ultimately become more responsible just from you just doing that little small practice of just making sure. And I know there's more stuff that you did aside from that, but still that was just a piece of just helping them with being able to rise to the occasion, which I think can be said on all different levels. Like if we give them the opportunity and we give them the tools to meet these expectations, they'll do it every time as long as we set the stage for them.
Right. Right. And I think, or to add to that, mentorship is so multifaceted. And the reason why, the true reason why I was so effective, I am so effective in these youth spaces, is because I don't treat any of my kids the same. Like at all. Part of like when I was at the when I was at my other job that I left, I can't be saying places out here. Yeah. When I was at the other job, what I would do with my right, right. When I was at my other job, coordinating my programming, with my teams, every introduction was different. So I took the same idea or concept of I took the same idea or concept of going to each room and saying good morning in order to make sure that people understood that I was present and I was here. So now when the kids were coming to me, I was making sure that I was making sure to introduce them in a way that they felt it was unique to them. And it's so interesting because even my girls, when they would come in and I was doing something else, they would come and find me like towards the end of my tenure at my other job before I was covering like the front desk. And that would take me away from my kids. So they would come and find me at some point and be like, yo, you ain't say hi to me in the way that we say hi. And I'd be
they
like,
feeling some type of way. They like,
yeah, they come and press me.
And
then I will do it. And then they'll be like, okay, I'm good now. And then they'll go on
like,
about,
you okay? Like, what's going on with you?
Yeah, what's up? Like, where were you? You wasn't there. And I think that consistency, to your point, that consistency is what they needed in order to be present. And for them to be present in the way that they felt comfortable. And that is
because that's another downside of like what they deal with on a day-to-day too. That's not always the instance for every youth, but I know for quite a few of the ones that I've supported, they have enough inconsistency with the adults that's in their life that's coming in and out, and it's just a revolving door. So that's why
Mhm.
it's so important that when we step into this role of mentor, that we serious about it, and that we are looking at the long-term impacts, and that we're going to stay consistent. That's another, I think, takeaway that I got from that same Every Student Needs a Mentor article. Like, you don't have to be perfect. Like, you're gonna stumble along the way. It's gonna be some mistakes, some bad judgment calls, but to your point, that consistency, like, it'll always win.
Yeah. Which okay. So boom. Cam Cam texted me and said her computer about to die.
See, why you
Yeah,
gotta tell my business? I knew you was
I gotta
gonna do
put
that.
you
I
out
knew
there.
you was gonna do that.
I was, but
That's
it's
why your camera
because
is messing up. That's why
yeah,
your
it's
camera
because
is
all my
messing up.
technology is going crazy right now. Like I don't know, Cam. We might have to do this conversation again, but I don't know. We'll see
That was
what it
stuck
looks like.
because we really been cooking on this one. Like,
Nah,
I
we
don't.
would no. I think we'll talk about that. But because we every percentage count at this point. So the Annie and Casey, real quick before we wrap, because we had a really good fruitful conversation. And we're towards the end anyway. And that's crazy because we thought that your AirPods were gonna die first, but it's actually your computer. So
Oh, they did. I've been strategically swapping
yeah,
out
I
just
swapping them out.
discreetly.
I seen you. Um so the interesting part of the statistics, 85% of young people with a mentor say um the relationship helped them with school or education. Also 74% say that a meaningful mentor contributed significantly to their later success. What I will say, the caveat to that is mentorship, believe it or not, is a hierarchy, meaning it depends on your socioeconomic status. So
Mhm.
studies also say, by way of the NEEKC Foundation, is children and youth from lower income households are less likely to have mentors compared to youth from more affluent households. So for those of you in the in the areas that have an urban suburban program and you send your kids to better school districts to get a better education, um that's a problem, right? Because we're I don't like that because we're taking our kids away from
Their
scenario,
reality.
their reality to say like, oh, they're better over there, so go and learn over there, then bring it back. Nah, because then you need someone who can mentor them through those areas, and we often introduce a lot more trauma to our kids when we do things like that without framing it in a certain way.
Mhm.
Cam talked about that a little bit earlier. But what I will say is it's so crazy that mentorship is um reserved for higher income individuals, but it's not surprising. And as we kind of close out this conversation, uh, get your kids a mentor, get yourself a mentor.
Mhm.
Whether it's when I was doing my research, a lot of mentorship for adults is talking about career mentorship. That is also a real thing. Get you a career mentor if you can, a life coach, a business coach, whatever the case. Those are all forms of mentorship, but don't see mentorship as a point of weakness, because mentorship is actually really strengthening, and those are your accountability partners that can take you to the next level. Mentorship is on both sides. You can learn from mentees as much as you can learn from mentors. I have mentors who I mentee in business and vice versa because I've taken on um, a pathway that makes me a lot more multifaceted than the people to which I grew up under as mentors. But yeah, I thought that was a very interesting caveat um, to apply a socioeconomic status on one's ability to receive mentorship. But then that also goes to like, we see boys as adults or girls as adults just because of how their body has formed at the age of 14 and 15, which means, if you're already adult and you already have this idea of I don't need to listen to nobody, which I'm sure we've all said at one point in our youth. So we have to normalize, adulthood being something that we grow and learn how to be, not something that just happens inevitably. Because you
Right,
can
like a
be an
light
adult.
bulb just goes off and
Yeah.
right,
You
yeah.
you can be an adult by age, but still be a kid by mentality. So
Mine. Mhm.
I'll leave that
Amen.
there. I'll leave that there. Cam, what you
Mic
got?
drop. Mic drop.
Hmm.
I got, about 3% left on my
Ooh.
laptop, so
All right. Well, close us out.
all right. Well, we appreciate y'all for listening and hope that y'all were able to relate to some of the examples that we gave. And also, hopefully, it sparked some own that you have. So don't forget, drop it in the comments, what gems you may have as well. And with that being said, we'll see you at our next session. Class has officially been dismissed, and our syllabus has been remixed.